Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles, a consulting hypnotist and a life coach, and welcome to Saturday at 2:30, a little video podcast that I run every Saturday at 2:30, talking about some aspect of coaching or the hypnotic arts and sciences. Today, I'm doing a topic that is going to be of interest probably mostly to my hypnotic colleagues, although others may find it interesting. I'm going to talk about what's known as erotomania, the illusion that someone loves you. And it is a problem, a growing problem that we are seeing in the helping professions for reasons I'll explain. A person who is in the grip of this problem concocts an elaborate fantasy that they are certain there's some other person who's in love with them but prevented from expressing that love directly. And everything is interpreted as a sign of this. A perfectly ordinary glance, the person may think that this person's always following me with his eyes or her eyes, when actually the other person's on their cell phone all the time. Everything is recruited in the service of the illusion. This has a more technical name, the Shambo Syndrome. It was first described by the physician of that name in 1885. It usually takes two forms: a younger woman who believes that an older, more successful man is passionately in love with her but not able to express that, or a man of any age believing that an extremely attractive woman is interested in him but prevented from expressing that attraction. It can persist. In the literature, there's cases that have gone on for 25 years, or it could be a series that the person with the erotomania recruits one person to have this illusion about, and then finally that runs out of energy. They recruit another one, and that goes until it runs out of energy, and then yes, there's yet one more. It certainly can be part of a larger mental health issue. In fact, some people consider this to be schizophrenia light because it could be a powerful delusion. And the real thing that's of interest to me, and the reason why the incidence may be increasing, is antidepressant medication appears to make the problem worse. So the vast overprescription of antidepressant medication in our society may be contributing to the rise of people who find themselves in the grip of this illusion. Now, examples. John Hinckley Jr., the person who attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan, did so because he was convinced that actress Jodie Foster loved him and he was trying to impress her. David Letterman, the talk show host of some years back, had a real problem with this in his life, where the woman who had the erotomania actually stalked him and would try to break into his house. Those are good examples. Now, what it's not. Every human being alive has probably had the experience of liking someone and thinking that that other person was also interested when they weren't. Most of us, as part of our maturation process, learn how to reality test that and hopefully get that corrected before we make a fool out of ourselves. That's not erotomania. Erotomania is when the conviction that there's an attraction that's mutual persists, even despite repeated attempts to correct it. Now, a person who has this illusion can be just crushed when the object of their illusion does something like have a child or gets engaged or gets married, and that can very quickly escalate into a desire to take revenge on that person. Now, the reason I'm identifying this as something that hypnotists should pay attention to is I happen to be the chairman of the ethics committee of the National Guild of Hypnotists. And one of the things that we do see is that sometimes a person will be convinced their hypnotist is in love with them, but prevented from expressing that because our code of ethics prohibits a romantic relationship between a practitioner and a client. And that person in the grip of this illusion may escalate attempts to try to break down that ethical barrier And we can get into a difficult situation where the practitioner sets a hard limit. And at that point, the person with the illusion escalates into revenge. And that can get really scary really fast. People who have this problem can have it so intently that they lose the ability to differentiate between reality and fantasy. They can actually imagine sexual encounters with the object of their fantasy that never actually happened, but which they remember as real. I actually know a case where the person insisted that this person had been with them sexually at the same time he was provably 1,000 miles away. But as far as that person was concerned, it was real. Sometimes you can even get things like hysterical pregnancies, where a woman's body mimics all the symptomatology of a pregnancy without actually being pregnant. And they're convinced that the object of their fantasy was the father of this non-existent child. When you talk to these people, what should cause a red light to go off on your dashboard is when you attempt appropriate boundary and limit setting and attempts continue to batter that boundary down. And when innocent coincidences like your phone number or your license plate number or the color of the car you're driving are interpreted by the other person as subtle clues of an affection to them. If that happens, you know you're in trouble, and you have to figure out a way to detach from this relationship. Now, consulting hypnotists sometimes get into difficulty with this one because we often don't recognize that it's happening to us. Psychotherapists, actually helping professionals of all kinds, experience something called transference. That is, a person who wants us to be able to help them will often unconsciously transfer to that person the qualities they believe that person needs to have to be able to help them. So, for example, a person who's having a problem with his mother might seek out a female therapist and then unconsciously imagine that this therapist is sort of like his mother, and but he can have a healthy relationship with this therapist that's well-bounded, that's appropriate, that's nurturing appropriately, and helpful. So the ability of us to transfer the authority to the helping professional that we need the professional to have to be able to help us is a healing thing in the mind. It allows us to work out our issues with someone who isn't able to be present, may even be dead. The psychotherapists tend to become extremely sensitive to what kind of transference they're picking up from their client. And their reaction to it, called countertransference, is controlled by that understanding. Also, psychotherapists tend to work in what's called a supervisory relationship. They tend to be periodically meeting with a colleague, often a senior colleague, to review their cases, and the senior colleague has the opportunity to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Take a look at this, and can give an early warning that something may be going awry. Consulting hypnotists, on the other hand, tend to work in isolation, or at least if we have colleagues around us, we're not usually getting together to talk about the cases that we're working with. And so we can be sitting ducks for this. A client can have this illusion, this erotomanic illusion about us, and be quite far gone into it before it gets through our thick head what's going on, and we realize it. And then we have to find some way to bring this under control. And it's extremely hard to bring under control. And the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. Harsh confrontation to the person who is in the grips of the illusion is going to result in escalation almost every time. Revenge-seeking, stalking, all kinds of things. Gentle confrontation also tends not to work, because that just gets interpreted as loving behavior trying to guide the person away from a romantic relationship that they believe is actually still welcome. The only way to deal with it that I've ever seen working, and I want to do a caveat, I've never been the target of this myself, in part because I come to consulting hypnotism from the pastoral care and counseling community, and I was always required to have a supervisor. Um, but the only way I've ever seen anyone successfully deal with this is to run. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Ghost on them. End the relationship. Block them. Don't respond to their emails. Don't return their phone calls. Offer no reinforcement at all. Because if any behavior you reinforce in this situation, you will get more of. So if you reinforce the illusion by responding compassionately, you're reinforcing it and you're going to get more of it. If you reinforce it negatively by opposing pointedly, that's still reinforcement. You're giving them your attention and you're going to get more of it. The only thing to do is to just simply stop. Go completely neutral. Certainly end the professional relationship. Thank you very much. I don't think I can help you anymore. Let me refer you to a colleague I think is a better match or whatever. But you provide no reinforcement, and eventually that will help the illusion extinguish if anything is going to. These are extremely awkward, difficult, and dangerous situations for a helping professional to get into. So you want to keep an eye peeled for in a helping relationship that this hasn't started to happen. You want to ask yourself intentionally, are the boundaries here good? Does it feel appropriate? Or is something becoming inappropriately energized? And when it does, the very first sign, you set a limit, you set a boundary, and then you watch and see if it's respected. And if it's not, danger, red light flashing, and take care of yourself that way. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and attention this week. I'll be back Saturday, 2:30 next week, and talking about something else. And I'm going to be talking about those people who try to manipulate other people by guilt tripping. And I'm sure all of us have met people in our lives who are travel agents for guilt trips. So tune in and I'll talk about my experiences with that and what I've seen as an effective strategy. As always, if I can be of help to you, please feel free to reach out through my website, Facebook, or whatever. When I edit this for my YouTube channel, I'll put my website on a card up above so you can have a chance, or actually down below, so you can actually see where my website URL is. Also, we do have a Patreon channel for those people who want a deeper encounter with the work that we do here. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like. And if you're on Facebook, please make it a point to like and share. Thank you. Stay well and stay safe.